Worldschooling in a nutshell is basically just homeschooling on the road. We all
Yep.
know that we have actively chosen not to be part of a brick and mortar community. We might have it through co-ops or through certain activities that we choose, but generally speaking, we are homeschooling where it works for us. And usually that place is home, wherever home is for you. But one of the things we learned very early on is home doesn't always have to be in the same place. You take the child with you wherever you are. You can take the concepts with you. Math is math, whether it's in Colorado, USA, or the south of France. It's still math. So you can explore the world. You can live the lessons that you are trying to impart upon your children. And what better way to integrate these lessons than by saying, well, let's see, today we are studying, I don't know, Greek mythology. Why don't we go to Greece and look at, the ruins and read
Uh-huh.
stories and study the stuff while we are immersed in it? And for what it's worth, I haven't been to Greece yet, but it is on our list. You can do whatever you want. You can drive an hour down the road and go check out, some other historical site. And that way, when you go home and you read the book about it or you do the assignment around it, it is a life memory for the child that really helps them internalize in a beautiful way whatever it is they're experiencing through the life that they are actively living with you above and beyond what they are reading about on a page.
Yes. So, can I share something with you? So, we I can't say we would have been world schoolers or we would have been US schoolers. We almost did this, and it is honestly, I'll probably take this regret with me to my grave, not doing it. But now our circumstances are so different. We have horses and so many animals. It's just not realistic. But we actually, how old were my kids? Let's say 7 and 9, something like that. We bought a 40-foot fifth wheel. It had 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, washer, dryer, 5 slides. It was huge, as far as a fifth wheel goes. And now we bought it used, thankfully, since we didn't end up using it. And we were going to move. Like we were going to travel. My husband had the opportunity to take a promotion where he literally would have been in different places throughout the US. So instead of him leaving the family, we were going to travel with him. And we got our house ready for sale. I literally, it was down to the day we were going to put it on the market. And I said, I can't do it. I can't do it because the realities of dealing with, I don't know how many dogs we had at the time, 1 or 2. And I think just 1 actually, and a cat, and just, and then my kids were little enough, maybe they weren't as old as I said. I really can't remember exactly, but they were little enough I would have had to still really keep an eye on them. And there was something for me that I wanted to stay with that safe backyard. But you want to know, this sounds so silly to me now. What part of it is we had done so much work to that house and I had it just the way we wanted. And we didn't have the horses yet. We were just a dog and a cat family. And I just didn't want to leave all the hard work we'd done. And now if I would have known my kids were going to dive deep with horses and we were going to move anyway to get horses, I would have done it. I I really, really wish we would have done it because now I can look at that and say that was the perfect time to do it in our lives. And we wouldn't have been traveling like every few days or every couple of weeks. It would have been like we would have put roots down for 2 or 3 months and then moved. So I'm curious, what made you want to do this? And what obstacles did you have to overcome? Because certainly there are obstacles to go from a lifestyle where you have your own home to moving on. So what was the catalyst there?
Sure. Well, it started happening long before we even realized it was happening. For example, my husband and I were both really big travelers before we even met. So by the time we met, we sort of already had the travel thing in our wheelhouse. We had, fully marked up passports and all that, and we knew that that was something that brought us both joy. Then we settled down and, got married, had the child, things seemed to be going sort of a traditional route. But at one point, we were traveling for vacation with our daughter. I think, gosh, I have to think which trip this was. It might have been Mexico when my daughter was maybe 3 years old or so. And my husband had been feeling kind of stuck in his job. When my daughter was about a year old, I had already left my corporate job that I had been with for 20 years. So I'd already taken some pretty big leaps and gotten past some fear of, oh, what's next? I know what's familiar, but can I really trust that things are going to keep turning out? So I had to move from a place of fear to trust around, well, so far all of these other big changes have turned out okay. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, we were on a
Go
flight.
ahead.
We were on our flight back from Mexico to the US, and we started making a list. It was a 3 or 4 hour flight, so we had plenty of time in the plane just to sit down. What do we want our life to look like? We were thinking it was a someday thing, but we started making this list of, oh, well, we want, natural beauty. Oh, we want to be able to have access to a city, but not necessarily be in a big city. And we just started thinking through all the things that we thought would bring us the most joy. And we were really specific about it. So we ended up with this, 100-point list by the time the flight was over. We got back to the US, and my husband, being the analytical fellow that he is, put it into Excel. And he made this Excel spreadsheet, which of course I sort of rolled my eyes at because that's not how I'm wired at all. But he started thinking about what places in the world actually fit this description. And we wanted it, of course, to be homeschooling friendly. And as you know, not everywhere is homeschooling friendly. For example, there are some that might look homeschooling friendly on paper, but then you find out, there's some Eastern European countries, for example, where homeschooling is totally above board. It's perfectly fine to do. However, you have to be tested in the local language every year to continue doing it. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can't guarantee that my child is going to learn the language in year 1 or year 2 or whatever. So we need to take these places off the list. So long story short, we realized there were probably only 10 to 20 places around the world that really fit our list. Now, this was still in dream state at this point. This was in someday land.
Yeah.
But we were living in Seattle, Washington at the time. And for various reasons, my husband ended up leaving his job kind of unexpectedly. But Seattle's a really high cost city. And we thought, he could look for some other work here right away. But I loved Seattle. My daughter loved Seattle. But he had seen nothing but the inside of an office for the years that we had been there so far. So he hadn't really grown attached to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you be open to doing something else? I said, yeah, how about world schooling? And at first we kind of joked about it, but then we realized, hang on, hold the phone. Our daughter's still young. We're not really committed to anything here. We don't have the job that we have to stay with because it's providing that security. We banked a ton of airline miles in our previous travel before even meeting each other. What do you
Mm-hmm.
say we cash in some of those miles? And frankly, for what we're paying here for rent, it doesn't have to be here that we're paying rent. We had a house that we owned in another state, but we had people living in it that we were renting to them. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like we could just go back and move in there because there were people living there. So we thought, if we're going to spend this kind of money to live somewhere, if we don't have to be here, why not cash in those miles? Why not give this a try for a while? And I would say within a month, we were on a plane to Portugal, which we
How
never would
awesome.
have had on our radar. And next thing you know, we're landing in Portugal going, I guess we're world schooling now. And that was,
That's awesome.
thank you.
Now, how old was your daughter?
Oh, goodness. At the time, she was probably 5, I think.
How
She
old
was,
is she now?
oh, she is almost 8 now.
So you've been doing this for about 3 years.
We have, although to be fair, we had done a lot of travel with her before we started world schooling as well. She's probably already seen a third of the United States or so, and she'd already
Hmm.
been to Mexico. She'd already been to Canada. You know, she's seen a lot in her short time. But then
Okay.
full time world schooling for 2.5 years.
All right. Now, oh gosh, let me think. I have a lot of questions. Okay. My first one is, so when we were thinking about traveling while schooling, we were going to do it in a fifth wheel. How do you do it? And what are the ups and downs to whatever you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, great question. The way we did it through Europe, for example, was largely through Airbnb. We anticipated doing slow travel, like you discussed, where you go for a couple of months and you kind of sort of put down temporary roots, but you're there for long enough that you get to know the area, you get to know some of the people, whatever. We didn't plan it this way, but we got so curious about what else was in the area that we ended up for a while switching just about every week. I don't necessarily recommend that because it's exhausting, but we would go until we found a place where we thought, oh, I could really see staying here for a while. And then we would try it on for a longer period of time. And then we'd get a little bit more mobile again, just doing Airbnbs. And then again, we would find perhaps a city. For example, we love Toulouse, France. And we thought, this is a place that we could see coming back to full time at some point. So let's stay on different sides of the city to see which community has the right vibe for us. So we still kind of had a home base as a city, but we navigated a little bit around what sort of area feels right, more urban, more rural, somewhere in between. But we really
That's
just kind of went where the wind blew us.
that is awesome. Yeah. Now, have you ever considered traveling via fifth wheel? And if so, why did you choose not that way?
You know,
Well, you
it's
can't fly.
yeah, it's on my radar to some degree. We really like international travel. That said, I have a friend who was also a world schooler, and they had a fifth wheel in Europe, and they used it over there, even though they're American. So
Okay.
there are options like that. I think part of the appeal to the way that we've been doing things is that if we do decide, for example, when we were in Portugal, we decided that we wanted our next stop to be France, but we wanted to get there fairly quickly. And then we actually ended up in Spain anyway. So when you think about the map, we could have done
Hmm.
the driving route, but we don't necessarily want to have heavy baggage, so to speak. We
Hmm.
want to be able to throw something on our shoulder and get to where we want to go without it having to be the slower version of travel.
So, okay. So now I have a new question here because this is so interesting. And I really think if somebody has ever considered doing, okay, there's a few people here, people who have literally never even thought of this. It's never even occurred to them to do this. So just opening your mind to what is possible for a homeschooling family. And excuse me. Okay, so you guys travel really light. What does light look like for you? Because yes, we've had a fifth wheel forever. Like most of our marriage, we've had a fifth wheel, and it is heavier travel, no doubt about it. But it is nice to not have to unpack your suitcase, but really packing up a fifth wheel is a lot of work. So, how light are you able to travel? I'm guessing you're pretty minimalist.
Yeah, we really are. We had basically no more than we could carry ourselves.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, granted, I'm stronger than I look. I can carry a lot of stuff, but it was never more than we could carry ourselves. Would I want to carry it? Like, I'm not talking backpacking, not that level of
But
life.
like a suitcase through the airport.
Like a suitcase through the airport, the carry-on that you can sit on top of the suitcase, backpack over my shoulders, and a free hand to hold on to the child. Child
Mhm.
has her little carry-on, husband has
Yes.
the equivalent.
So pretty much you can fly anywhere and you've got everything you need. So do you I'm curious about this. I'm like getting deep here on the technical aspects. So do you like if it's do you just get rid of your wardrobe to fit whatever or just a lot of layers, because let's say you go somewhere where it's really cold. Well, you don't need the shorts and you're definitely going to need a coat. But if you're somewhere where it's warm, you don't really want to mess with the coat all the time. So what are the logistics of that look like?
Sure. We definitely go for the most versatile objects in our wardrobe. I'm big on, in fact, I'm even kind of in it today. I've got a tank top under a sweater.
Hmm.
And, if it were 80 degrees Fahrenheit, I would lose the sweater and be happy in a tank top. But,
Yeah.
today I'm dressed for 45 degrees outside because I'm wearing the sweater. So, definitely layering goes a long way. Um, the coat, certainly you can wear through the airport, even if it's the middle of summertime and it's warm outside. And then when you get onto the plane, you take off the coat and you use it as a pillow when you need to take your nap and
Yeah.
just kind of live with lugging it around. But then when you need it, you need it. So it was a
You know,
lot about the most versatile items in the wardrobe. We did get into a laundry cycle of about every 3 days because, of course, in Europe, dryers aren't as common as they are here in the States. So we also had to build in air drying time so that we
okay.
weren't having to put on wet clothes while things were drying. So, a couple of pairs of pants. I'm definitely, even in the best, most normal of circumstances, I wear jeans way more than one time before I feel like they have to be washed unless something
Hmm.
specifically dirty happens to them, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But, we brought, I realize this is Facebook Live. We brought a ton of underwear, a ton of the things
I
that
don't
you don't
care.
necessarily, yeah, like we're real, right? Um,
Yeah.
we,
Well,
we
you know what? We looked into this type of stuff enough, and we started backpacking for a while, and then it was like we had kayaked for years, with touring boats, and we thought, well, all the small stuff would transfer to backpacking. So, like ex officio has things that is that how you say it? I don't even know, but that you can air dry quickly. So, I'm aware of these things. But here's what would always get me as far as the wardrobe part goes is as a woman, you have your 90% of the time. For me, I dress casual 90% of the time. And I tend to believe in wearing something I can also be active in, because if I'm not wearing something I can be active in, then I'm not active, and that's not good for my health, right? But it's those few times you need quotes dressier clothing, for whatever reason. And so I think that's part of what would get me. But I actually, as I talk about it, I'm like, oh, I have a solution. I love thrift stores. If you really got to dress up, go get your thing from the thrift store, wear it, and be done with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm especially if you're traveling and you can't keep it, you wash it and wear it and be done. So,
Exactly. Yeah, I confess, I actually, and now I'm embarrassed to even admit this out loud, but I remember before getting on, before packing for the first long European stint, I remember thinking, I can't really I don't do my fingernails very often, but I usually have toenail polish on. How am I going to, I don't want to pack toenail polish remover because that's smelly and heaven forbid that break open in the suitcase. That would ruin all my
yeah.
clothes. So what am I going to do about toenail polish? And I was actually kind of stuck on it. And finally I thought, Sarah, get it together. Don't paint your toenails. Get over it. Like they're toenails. So letting
Yeah.
go of things like that, of these silly ideas, and to your point, oh, I might need the fancy shoes. No, you don't. Oh, I might need the
No,
extra
you don't
fancy
need.
jewelry. Leave it at home. Just pretend you're in your
Mhm.
everyday wear and chill like a lot.
So when we were thinking about traveling, and I kick myself for not taking that moment in our lives where we could have done it. But honestly, we had two cats. That was honestly my biggest reason for not doing it. Is my daughter, after we moved, and my neighbor's dog got our cat, and she died.
Oh,
It was heartbreaking. But I really, like, she adored that cat, and I really couldn't understand how I was going to keep her cat safe. Like, it was a huge The dog I could deal with. It was, and the other cat's sort of a weird cat. Honestly, we still have her today, but she's skittish. She doesn't get real attached. She stays outside. She doesn't, want to be in. But that the other one was like totally an inside cat with a little outside, and just like she was like a dog. Okay, I'm going to digress for a minute because this is sort of funny. My daughter literally trained this cat. She would sit on the couch like a human on her butt, and her tail would twitch, and she would tell her to stay, and that cat would stay for 5 minutes until she released her. She would set up Tinker Toy jumps in the living room, and she trained her to jump the Tinker Toys. I mean, like she was an amazing cat. I miss her. But I couldn't, I was so afraid that cat would get out and it would be heartbreaking for my daughter. And it turns out she had the heartbreak anyway. But I I really couldn't understand how I was going to keep her kitty cat safe. That was the biggest, literally the biggest reason we didn't do it was for the cat.
Well, I hear you. I'm a pet lover as well, and the timing worked out well for us in that I had a cat who was almost, she was just shy of her 20th birthday
Oh.
before it was her time to go.
And
And
so
that
you
was,
were pet free for that short
we
time.
were pet free. Yeah, I would have had, I don't know that I could have left if my cat, I mean, particularly that cat,
Yeah.
she was like the cat you're talking about. She was like, stranger, hi, welcome to our home. Can I sit on your lap? Like, I'm the friendliest cat ever. So she was the
Yeah.
cat as well. But yeah, I don't know that I could have left so easily or at all if there weren't a way to bring her.
Isn't
So
that funny? Because some people, if you don't, if you're not an animal lover, you might just be like, what? But you really, and it's for your animal, but also for, I mean, we all loved that cat, but for the child who really had such a strong bond, that it was a big part of that decision. I had forgotten that part, and just the safe backyard, your surroundings, all those things. So, oh, okay. Now I totally digressed and took us elsewhere, but these are real world considerations. If you want to do this and you find yourself in a moment with no pets and you've always had pets, that might be a good time to try it on. And you don't have to travel forever. You could try it for 3 months. You could try it, like if at some point we sell our house, now I'm like, okay, our horses could be at our in-laws for a while. They have property, and we could even take 3 to 6 months and travel, and then buy a house if we wanted to. Because I still have this desire to do this with my kids. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't have to be forever. It could even be for a while, when you find that you're thinking about moving or you don't have pets. There are moments in your life where you can seize it, seize the moment.
sure, yeah, try it on by all means. This is not a lifetime commitment. You are not marrying world schooling when you do this. Two quick thoughts. One is about the cat. One thing that we didn't expect is when we traveled, one of the Airbnbs where we stayed came with a cat, and we fell in love with this cat. This cat fell in love with us, and to this day, a year later, we still get text messages from the owner of the Airbnb with updates on the cat because he knows how much my daughter loved this cat. So
Oh,
you can definitely connect with other animals if you find a way. And then, back to the other point, yeah, try it on. If world schooling doesn't feel comfortable, go somewhere for a week. See how that sits with you. Do you like it? Do you not? You
yeah.
have to make a lifetime commitment to it.
So my other things that I'm thinking about as I'm visiting with you is I think you must have learned so much about yourself. And I would think that your family is likely tighter knit as a result of this. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, two parts there. Learning about myself, definitely. Yeah, it was definitely a space to grow into what kind of life do I want to have? Am I actually living it? And who's the person inside here? Because it's not just this life that we create around ourselves, it's the life that we create within ourselves. So
Yes.
we definitely need to and have the opportunity when we are traveling, when we're out of our comfort zone, to figure out what is our comfort zone exactly and why is it what it is. So it's really a great opportunity to be introspective while you are out and about in the world. And then as far as bringing the family closer together and being more tightly knit, as I mentioned before we moved from Seattle, my husband was in his office all the time. He had an incredibly stressful job where there were literally weeks where either he was out of the country for work himself, or he might as well have been, because there were times where I would wake up in the morning, he'd already be gone for work. By the time I'd go to bed, he still wasn't home, and it would go on like
Yes.
that for weeks. So there wasn't a lot of joy there as a
Mm-hmm.
unit. And
Yeah.
frankly, the biggest drawback of that was the relationship that he had with our daughter. She loved him, but she didn't necessarily feel super comfortable with him taking care of her when he was home, because it's like, I haven't seen you for a week or two and you want to brush my teeth? Like, that feels kind of intimate. Like, can we just play a game? It wasn't a natural connection for them. So having that time to spend together as a family was not only incredibly healing for the two of them, but it was also healing for us as a holistic unit, because we got to figure out what is our family dynamic besides daddy's off again, and
Mm-hmm.
how do we really reconnect? How do we get along? How do we find ways to enjoy being in each other's presence 24 hours a day?
Yes.
Because that is something unto itself.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, I could keep you on here another hour, I'm telling you, because I have all these different things that now I'm finding myself wanting to ask about your husband and how he felt about homeschooling and all, and how this it has impacted him. Like, I'd almost like to interview him. So if he's interested, let me know. Because really, there's another side of this story, right? And how that helped him just as a man, as a father, as a husband, the impact that it's had, and I can relate on some different levels, but I don't want to go down those rabbit holes, but I really have like more questions there. And then something you said a few minutes ago made me think of this. So while we did not actually end up traveling, that experience changed me forever. Really, because we were really serious about it. It was not like we were gonna do it, and then I just couldn't cross the line. We were up to the line, And so here's what I found: what just by going through the experience. One is I put two. I was never super materialistic, and especially like with my, I don't, let's say clothing or something like that, but I was with my house in a way. Like, I really cared how my house looked, about all the decorating. And my identity was wrapped up with that house, that specific, not a house, that house, because the decorating represented my taste. The yard represented all of that effort we had put into landscaping it, and everything. And what I found I was thinking about by going through this experience is, this sounds so shallow now. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but that people aren't going to want to hang out with me because of my house. They have to want to hang out with me because of who I am. And who am I? What makes me a compelling person to want to be around, right? And it literally changed my life because I recognized I needed to separate who I am from my house, right? And then the other part of that, I'm trying to think. Oh, is I really started leaning toward minimalism because we got rid of so much stuff. We really got rid of so much. And I also, with the clothing, I tried it out for like 6 months. I made like I literally taped off 18 inches of a closet rod and said, okay, this is all the closet space I get. Can I do this? It was like a practice run. And I found out I could do it with a season's worth of clothing. I couldn't do it with, I wasn't there on the whole year's worth of clothing. So those are just things I thought about. And I'm guessing you have found that to be true as well. It's who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Because the stuff really is just stuff at the end of the day. And, what we've started doing is we have a box, we call it the box of love. And we put the most precious things to us in that box, but it's not big, but it's mostly, it's things like the first time my daughter ever wrote, "I love you, mommy," on a
Hmm.
piece of paper and handed it to me. Of course, that's in the box. It's things that if there were the proverbial fire, I could grab the box and be like, okay, this is the stuff that matters most. And yeah, do I love that painting that's up on the wall? I really do. But do I actually love it? Someday,
Uh-oh, you
well,
froze. I don't know if you can hear me.
yeah, I can. Yeah, but someday if that painting went away, I'd survive. It's not about my joy in that painting. The joy is in here. The joy is in the world. The joy is in the air and the spirit and the connections
Yeah.
we make. And it's never about the stuff.
No, it's not. It's about the people in your life. So I think that's probably about the right point to wrap this up, or we could just talk all day long. I'm pretty sure of this. So thank you. Thank you. And I hope that this opens people's eyes to the possibility that homeschooling provides. You have these options in some form or another, even if it's for a season, to try it on. So